Hi guys, I'm Angie. Welcome to my channel and welcome to Vlogmas. Today is Vlogmas day 1. We will see how this goes. As you can see, I'm currently in a hotel room. I'm in New York, so excuse the unmade bed because I'm not going to make that. Today we're going to talk about my November wrap up, or really my kind of lack of one. It is a very, very small wrap up. I only read 3 books in the month of November, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal, but because of that, I also want to talk about the books that I'm currently reading and the books that I think I want to try to get to next month to kind of beef up this video. And it's also kind of like a last now next, if you've ever seen that trend before, where you talk about the last book you read, the current book you're reading, and then the next book that you're going to read. This is kind of like that, except each category is going to have multiple books. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I will talk about the books that I did complete in the month of November, and then we'll just go from there. So the first book that I finished in November was Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is a book that I swear took me 2 weeks to read. Not that it is a hard book at all to read. It's a pretty easy book. Very easily digestible, but I've just been in a huge reading slump, obviously. I'm sure you can guess that from the only 3 books that I read last month. Caught Up by Liz Tomford is a single dad nanny sports romance. The FMC is a pastry chef. She's a really, really fancy pastry chef. She's really accomplished, and she travels across the country and works with different kitchens in hopes to get them a Michelin star. So I'm sure you can guess she's very untethered. And then the MMC is a single dad baseball player. He is on he's on an MLB team, and I believe he is a pitcher. And the way that they end up kind of getting together is the FMC, I believe her name is Stevie, maybe. The FMC, she kind of starts getting some pretty serious burnout just because she has been working like nonstop, and she's kind of unsure if the route that she took with her career is really what she wanted to do. She has kind of like a bit of an episode or just a situation happen at one of the kitchens that she's working at, and she just leaves. She just gets out of there, and it just so happens that her dad is one of the coaches, I believe. I don't know if he's a manager or coach. I'm pretty sure he is a coach of the baseball team that the MMC plays for. So her dad proposes that she comes to stay with the team, essentially, so that they can spend more time together and so that she can kind of rest from her everything going on. He suggests that she should be the nanny for the MMC's son. There's definitely like a tiny bit of maybe dislike to lovers in this at the very beginning of the book. They don't really mesh very well. Like the FMC just loves messing with the MMC, which is definitely fun to see. And then they slowly obviously start to trust each other, and, you know, feelings happen and stuff like that. It's a romance book, so I'm sure you can guess how it ends. And I wouldn't say that I dislike this book. I definitely think it is a solid book, especially if you're looking for a single dad nanny sports romance book. That is what it promised, and that is what it delivered. I just think, like, me in my current like reading slump situation, I was just kind of bored with it, I guess. Especially because I'm kind of at a point where, even though I'm such a huge romance reader, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I think I'm getting sick of romance, because like when like the really sweet moments were happening, like at the very end where everyone was getting married and and we're just like so in love and stuff like that, I was just like, I didn't care. And that just might be like, maybe I read it at a very like cynical time or something, but I don't know. It ended up just kind of falling flat for me, I think, because I was just bored, and it was just your standard story. There wasn't anything too special about it, at least not for me. I know that for other people this is, I'm sure, a very special book. It's a very popular book. But yeah, that is just kind of how I'm feeling. This is the second time that I've attempted to read Liz Tomford. The first time I ended up DNF'd Mile High, and so I didn't DNF this book, so I would say that I liked it more than that, but it still was like, what, like a 300-page romance book that took me 2 weeks to read, which is out of character for me, to say the least. The second book that I finished in the month of November was Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I listened to this as an audiobook. I used my Spotify credit. This is a book that it's not that it wasn't on my radar. I feel like every book is on my radar like all the time, just because I consume so much book content. I wasn't planning on reading this book, but I actually was just like, okay, romance is like not doing it for me. I need to switch it up, and just went to Spotify and I just started scrolling, and like this book was the first one that just grabbed my attention, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it and read this. this. First, I have to say that the audiobook is absolutely incredible. It is a full cast, and I'm sure, as you can guess by the title, it follows a horror movie, the filming of one. And in the audiobook, you'll actually hear them read the script. You'll hear them like turn the pages. It's very cool. It's like semi-graphic audio. It's not all the way there, but it's definitely partly like a kind of a graphic audio, but it's not produced by graphic audio or anything like that. Horror movie primarily follows our main character, obviously. He was part of this movie that was filmed, I believe, 15 or 20 years from the present of the book. And it's very clear from the start that something happened at the filming of this movie, or just the movie itself is just something was going on. And we follow our main character in the present as he's like working on the set and on the process to get the film rebooted. The movie itself was actually never released because of like everything that happened on the set. But even though it was never released, clips of it were released online. Just those clips alone managed to garner like a kind of like a cult following. And so that's kind of how this movie ended up getting a reboot. So as you can guess, kind of by the way I've very badly explained this book, it's half in the present, half in the past. We're mostly in the past, honestly. We're mostly following the filming of this movie, and we're following the people that filmed the movie, all from this one guy's perspective. He played this character called the Thin Guy, and it was a very weird character. He didn't have any lines. The director of the movie even had him stay separately from the rest of the cast and crew because she like wanted his role to be very like mysterious, if that makes sense. The biggest thing was the whole time in the movie he's wearing a mask. You don't see his face, but the mask is like a really, really big deal. So yeah, this isn't, obviously, like I said, this isn't like in my normal genre, but I like to think that I kind of like all genres, and I would say that I did like this book. I thought it was pretty good. Definitely, I was very, very invested at the beginning. I think how I am with any sort of like horror or thriller book, I'm so invested at the beginning, and I feel like I do tend to lose momentum at the end, and I would say that happened here as well. While the ending was definitely technically shocking, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it was just because I was at the end and I was just kind of ready to finish it or something like that, but it didn't wow me too much. I feel like I'm not very easily wowed in general, so that's like a me thing. So I did like it, but I think at the end of the day, it was kind of just okay. If it's like something that's already on your radar, I definitely think you should like read it or listen to it especially. I definitely think it's like worth checking out, even if I kind of just thought it was okay. Sorry if that like didn't make any sense. Okay, and then the third book that I finished in the month of November was The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. This is probably my favorite book that I read this month. I was really, really into it. I also listened to this as an audiobook. I tend to listen to memoirs as audiobooks in general because usually it's read by the author. So if you didn't know, Kelly Bishop is part of the show Gilmore Girls. She plays Emily Gilmore, who is Lorelai's mother. While yes, I do think it was a pretty good memoir, I think in addition to that, I am like super, super into Gilmore Girls right now. Me and my boyfriend are watching it for the first time ever. So it was a very timely read for me too. Aside from that, I think I would genuinely like this book. It is pretty short, and she is someone that's lived a very long life. She's done a lot of different things in her life. It's just cool to see her insight and just hear about everything that she's done, everything that she's experienced. Because honestly, the Gilmore Girls part of it is only maybe a chapter or two. Because there's so many other things that she's done in her life that she talks about. She was actually part of the very first cast of A Chorus Line, the musical. She actually had like a very big part in kind of developing that script. And she also just seems like a very cool person who's not afraid of like being different or like pursuing what she wants to do. It was just cool to hear about the life of a very accomplished woman, which I know is kind of what happens in a lot of these memoirs. That's what like, you're not gonna really write a memoir unless you've accomplished a lot of stuff, right? Yeah, I would definitely say this is my favorite book that I read this month. Ever since then, I've just become like a walking, talking Kelly Bishop fact machine. I just have so many new facts about Kelly Bishop, so many new facts about Gilmore Girls that I just like want to tell everyone. It's kind of annoying, honestly. Like I think I'm annoying myself just by being like, well, you know, Kelly Bishop's memoir, blah, 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 blah. So while I'm really glad that I read it and I learned so much, obviously. Hopefully that passes soon. Now that we're done with the last section, because those were all of the books that I read in the month of November, let's go to the now section and talk about the books that I'm currently reading. Currently in the middle of 2 books. One of them is Grave Matter by Karina Halley. I think she technically called this like a romantic thriller, I believe. And I'm about 70 or maybe even 80% of the way through this book. I'm getting to the end of this book and I am liking it so far. So Grave Matter follows our main character, Sydney, as she kind of embarks on this research program on Vancouver Island. She's a mycologist, so she studies mushrooms. This research program kind of has to do with that. Kind of all the different like natural things that can be studied on Vancouver Island. One of the things about this research program is that it's very, very secluded. This island, there's not a lot of people that live there, and or at least not where the program is. She also has to like drop off her phone. Like she has no access to the outside world at all. And it becomes clear pretty quickly that something weird is going on. You know, like she starts to like, you know, see stuff and hear stuff, and she's not acting like herself. It's just a bit curious, I guess. Karina Halley is definitely keeping me very engaged on the plot. I really, really, really want to know what is going on in this story. There is, like I said, it is a romantic thriller, so there is a romance plotline as well. The romance is with one of her professors. I love that. I'm a big, like, my guilty pleasure is student professor. I love that trope so much. And I do think it's not a bad romance at all. It's hot, I guess. But I would say where I am right now, like I kind of want a little bit less of the romance, a little bit more of the plot. I really just want to know what is happening. I'm really liking this book. I think, honestly, I think if it sounds like something you'd like, if you're looking for a romance that has like a very thrilling plotline, I definitely think you should check it out. And then because it's like on this island and it's like there's like some kind of like she's seeing stuff and stuff like that, it's definitely like a little spooky as well. And I think probably one of the coolest things about this book is that Karina Halley was actually inspired by this because she sailed around Vancouver Island, obviously on a boat. But she sailed around it, I think with her husband or something, and it took over 30 days. So that's like how she was inspired to write this book. She spent a lot of time in that area. And I just think that's really cool. I love to hear why authors write books. I think it's the coolest thing ever. And then the other book that I'm reading is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This is like a super popular book right now. I think it came out pretty recently and I'm listening to it on audiobook. If you haven't heard anything about this book, it basically follows this woman who goes to a like an inn or a boutique hotel to stay there. But it turns out that all of the other guests there are all there for one singular wedding. She kind of gets mistaken as part of the wedding people, essentially. But not only is she not there for the wedding, she's actually there for something like very specific and like a little dark. I would definitely check like trigger warnings for this book. Where I am right now, she's met the bride and it seems like her and the bride are going to have some sort of relationship where they console each other in a way. I don't really know because I'm really not that far into this book. I have so much more left and it's fine right now. Like I don't have an opinion really because nothing has happened yet. I would say that my only concern is that this is going to be like almost something like The Midnight Library, where it's kind of one of those books where it's like, don't be depressed, there's so much more to live for, which is an important message. Just not really the kind of books that I like to read. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I've been trying to read more audiobooks. So hopefully if I continue to do that, I will, you know, listen to this one like way more. And now let's get into the next part of this this little chat, which is the next portion. So the books that I want to try to read next month. The first one, I mean there's like so many books that I want to read, and I'm such a mood reader, so it's hard to say what I will end up reading. I know that I made a list of like I think 15 books that I want to read before the end of the year, so I am kind of following that as much as I can. When I made that list, I wasn't expecting to be this deep into a reading slump. I really just want to read books that that will get me through this, essentially. But I do have a list of like a couple that I think could be fun to get to and are on that list as well. So the first one is Funny Story by Emily Henry. So far, I've really liked most of the Emily Henry books that I've read, at least of her romances. I haven't read her other books. I think I'm going to like this one as well. It seems to be pretty popular, as I mean, all Emily Henry books are popular, but I've seen less negative reviews for this book as opposed to some of her other ones. So I think that could be a really fun book to get to. Another one, I believe it's called Tell Me How You Hate Me by Kelly Mel. This is a book I've been wanting to read for so long and for whatever reason haven't just picked up. But as you can see from the cover, it is like an ice skating romance. A few months ago now, I kind of went down a rabbit hole of like watching ice skating pairs on TikTok and just whatever. Like it blows my mind that like you can have that kind of relationship with someone and like not be in love with them. It's like such an intimate experience, or at least that's what it seems like. And of course I did read From Luke Off With Love like right after that. Sorry about the sirens. Again, I'm in New York. So obviously I read From Luke Off With Love after that and I was obsessed with it. I think I read it in one day. It was so much fun. So I've been wanting to read this book and I haven't because I like had other books to read and stuff like that. So maybe next month, where I feel like there's nothing that I feel like I have to read, I can pick this one up. Then another book that I think would be really cool to get to is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. The condition on this is I told one of my mutuals on TikTok that I would do a buddy read with her, and I left it up to her to let me know when she was ready to do that. If that happens next month, that would be cool. But if not, I will keep waiting until she's ready to read together. And then finally, a book that I want to read is just any book that is not a romance book. I'm sure you can kind of see from this wrap up that like I think I need to take a break from romance because it is putting me in a reading slump. I don't know if it's because I've just read so many. At this point, I've read probably like 400 plus romance books in the past few years or so. It's starting to, I think, become a little old for me, which is so surprising because I ride so hard for romance, and I still do, honestly. Like, it's still going to be my favorite genre, and I'm sure I will have another time where I'm like obsessed with just reading romance. But I think right now I need to read anything that is not a romance book, of course, other than the ones I just mentioned. See, all romance books are just the ones that are on my mind, the ones on my TPR. Like I said earlier, I think all books are kind of on my radar because I consume so much content. Definitely, it's mostly romance books. And yeah, I just need to take a break. Whether it's a thriller book, a horror book, literary fiction, I think could also be good. Also more memoirs. I love listening to memoirs too. So we'll kind of see what that ends up being. But I need to kind of not step out of my comfort zone because I don't feel uncomfortable outside of the genre of romance. I just, I'm so used to thinking like, oh, what book am I going to read next? Maybe one of these like 300 romance books that I want to read because they are the ones that are already on my mind. I need to think outside the box, I guess. That was my November wrap up and kind of my little last now next. I know that I'm reading like so little right now. Like, I actually think November was my worst reading month in terms of numbers in the past 2 or 3 years now. Before I've definitely done like 4 books in a month, but I think this is the first time I've done only 3, which is fine. I mean, I'm happy at the end of the day to read any books, and I know that, you know, we can't always just be all the way up here. Like, there's going to be dips and hills and stuff like that. I also still hope that December is just a little bit better. Historically, I do have pretty good reading months in December, so we'll see how it goes. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys follow along with Vlogmas as long as I do it, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!